Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, October 24th, 2024. That 24 threw me there. Thursday, October 24th, 2024. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and change. You know what time it is. Thursday before a big home game. We got Bill Kurelic and Mark Porter here. We will get it all going. First thing I need to let you know about is Prize Picks, one of our great new sponsors. It is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Think Jamar Chase will get more than 83.5 receiving yards next week? How about the return of Nick Chubb a week into it? Will he run for more than 55.5 yards? Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. It also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Download the Prize Picks apps today and use code Bucknuts to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Picks app today and use code Bucknuts to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Basically, you put $5 in there, they'll put in 50. You go from there. Talk about a great deal. Look at the guys we have here. The Dean, Bill Kurelic, and the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter. Gentlemen, Nebraska comes calling this weekend. I think it's kind of an interesting game in a lot of ways. Big Ten game, coming off a bye, coming off a loss. We got a chance to see up close and personal Dylan Raiola, once thought to be the future of Ohio State's quarterback position. And we'll get into some game chatter at some point here, but we focus on the red carpet here, and Bill, there's been some maneuvering on who would actually hit the plush carpet this weekend. Why don't you bring us up to speed on the primary targets headed for Columbus? By the way, noon kickoff, and we all know what that does to recruiting. It limits the number of dudes you can get here, but the Dean will still give you that limited number.
Yeah, it does. We talked about this on Tuesday, that with the noon kickoff, it makes it harder for kids with that are coming from distance to get to Ohio State. Mikel Steffen from Mississippi was going to be here, 2027 running back who has an Ohio State scholarship offer. He won't be able to make it, just as an example. So it does limit a little bit, but still, it's going to be a really good group of recruits. Very good group of recruits. They're going to be two official visitors, Zaire Mathis, who is committed to Ohio State, and Damola Ajadahan, who is committed to Georgia Tech. And I checked with him last night and talked to him late last night, actually, and he's all set to go. He's excited about getting up. It's going to be his first ever visit to Ohio State. He's coming with his mom, and he said she's excited about getting up here as well. He is still committed to Georgia Tech, but to be honest, I'll be a little surprised if in the end he signs with Georgia Tech. I think more than a better chance would be that he signs with either Ohio State or Georgia. But as of now, he is still committed to Georgia Tech. The other big name 2025 guy will be Jakeem Stewart, the defensive lineman from Louisiana. He will be in Columbus this weekend as well. So that's three very important 2025 guys that will be in Ohio Stadium on Saturday. You've got a number of the commitments. Tavian St. Clair, Isaiah West is coming from Pennsylvania out to this game. BP Miller, Carter Lowe, Jake Cook, those guys all plan to be at the game tomorrow. And then you got a nice mixture of 2026, 2027, and even a top 2028 player, Asher Yoto from Florida, 2028 defensive end, is planning to be at the game. From the class of 2026, some of the top guys planning to be at the game. Running back Jamichael Jones, he's been offered by Ohio State. Tight end Corbin Fordham from Florida. Tight end Lincoln Keys. JB Shabazz, an offensive tackle from Georgia. Storm Miller, linebacker from Northeast Ohio. Those guys all have been offered a scholarship by Ohio State. Favour, Akih, a running back from Delaware Hayes, is excited about getting to Ohio State for the game. That'll be his first actual recruiting visit to Ohio State. Hadn't been offered by the Buckeyes, but he's having a really good junior season. Those are some of the top 2026, 2027. Interesting quarterback athlete that's going to be at the game. Caden Jones, all the way from California, is going to be at the game. Trey Taylor, quarterback from Illinois, will be at the game. Dakota Garant, really good player from Michigan. This will be at least, I think it'll be his second Ohio State game this season that he has been at. Wide receiver, defensive back. Maxwell Hiller, offensive lineman. Quentin Cipher, a linebacker. He is a teammate of J.B. Shabazz. Those guys have all been offered a scholarship by Ohio State, so it is indeed a good group. And there'll be some other names that come up between now and kickoff on Saturday.
We're not avoiding Mark. We're going to dive into some Maxwell Hiller video here in a second. But, Bill, I have a couple quick questions. The first question would be, what happened with Naeem Offord? I think everybody wants to know. Cam St. Preley, we know he canceled his visit to Columbus, and he's rescheduled. And the Georgia Tech offensive lineman, I'm not going to try and pronounce his name. How did Georgia Tech get two so highly coveted tackles in one class? Josh Petty is another stud who's moved up to a 5-star in some services. And Desmond, I don't know, your guy. How do you explain that? And does that contribute to the fact that you think one of them will bail?
Yeah, Petty wasn't a huge surprise. He is a very academically oriented kid. Georgia Tech is well regarded when it comes to academics. So he wasn't a big surprise. It was a little bit more of a surprise as far as Akih DeHun. Now, having said that, again, I think that he will, in my opinion, I think there's a decent chance that he does not end up at Georgia Tech. He might, and he is still committed to them. But academics played a pretty big part in his decision as well, and staying close to home. But Akih DeHun has been looking around. He's visited other schools. He made an official visit to South Carolina a few weeks ago. He is going to make this official visit to Ohio State this weekend. Georgia's still in the running. Ole Miss is still in the running. So we'll see what happens with him. And I also should mention there was kind of a rumor going around that Turbo Rogers was going to be at this game. And that's not accurate. He was thinking about it, and a source close to him had told me that they thought he might make it up this weekend to Ohio State. But Turbo Rogers will not be making an official visit to Ohio State this weekend. I know he is still planning to make one, and there's a couple big games still out there in Ohio Stadium that he's got to choose from. Of course, Indiana's now a big game, and then the team up north at the end of the season.
Bill, I apologize. I turned my head there. Did you comment on Naeem Offord?
Perhaps I did. Yeah, you asked about him, and I don't think I did. Yeah, Naeem is not going to make it to Ohio State this weekend. He has a nephew that's playing in the Magic City Classic in Birmingham this weekend, and he and his family are going to stay down there in Alabama and go to that instead. But the plan. And again, I say the plan is for him to get up to the Michigan game now. If that works out, and we will see if it does, but if that plan goes through, then if you had your choice, you'd rather have him come for the Michigan game rather than the Nebraska game. Of course, we got to get him on campus. That is, Ohio State's got to get him back on campus. I think that's extremely important for him to actually sign with Ohio State, stay with his equipment and all. I think it's very important that he makes it back to Ohio State. And that's the plan right now, that he comes back for the Michigan game.
I didn't know what the Magic City Classic was, so I looked it up. It is the 83rd football clash between Alabama A&M University and Alabama State University, the number one historically black college universities classic in the country. That does sound like a good time. All right. Someone asked about Maxwell Hiller. Sean Schrock. I'm sorry, buddy. That's my fault. Mark, can you talk about Maxwell Hiller, a 5-star offensive tackle? Ask and ye shall receive. The Grand Poobah's on the clock.
Yeah, I was watching some of his highlights versus Downington last week, and then I found a double game breakdown. We'll walk you through here. It's not exactly cut up very well. It's there's a lot of dead time in between plays, so I'll have plenty of time to talk. You see him at right tackle right here, and
hold on a second, Mark. You got to point him out because I don't think anyone knows who he is.
Okay, yeah. Maxwell Hiller is going to be a tackle, 6'5", 275 pounds
Right
from
tackle?
Pennsylvania. Yeah. Right tackle right now, and we'll let it just play, but this is one of the best plays on this film. Takes the end for a ride. You see the feet. You see the aggressiveness. When I was watching the Downington highlights, there were a couple other plays like that. This highlight film is just a 1 or 2 game breakdown from his week 2 and week 3 highlights. But I would see, just from what I've seen watching prior to this, very, very athletic for a big man, class of 2027. You see the feet a lot in this tape. You see, again, it's a pass play there, and you see him run downfield and pancake a guy.
I feel terrible for those guys. The play is essentially stopped, and everyone in the stadium was watching this guy get dog walked up the field for 10 yards. And how many people refer to the movie The Blind Side when they see that? Go ahead.
And that's kind of what we're seeing here. And I love it as a sophomore. He's this advanced already with this type of power and technique. But, yeah, this is probably a left tackle candidate because of the way his feet work here. There were a few pass clips when I saw earlier. The other thing you'll notice, I look at the guard right next to him. He looks to be like a 340-pound monster also. So there's a couple big offensive linemen on this.
Was he at right tackle there, and the left guard was
he was at right tackle, but you couldn't see him because the guard, and you see the guard again, he's a monster huge. Too. Yeah. I think this is a pass play again, so you get to see the kick step. He's not being challenged very much in the clips we're watching by the competition. That's why I watched that Downington game. I thought there might be a little competition there. But, yeah, this is a no-brainer for Ohio State as far as they're concerned, especially this young. And if he's already 275 pounds, you can probably pencil him up to about 300 pounds by the time you see him in college. Great-looking guy.
Level of play we just saw?
In Pennsylvania, I'm not sure, but there was a random mix of players we saw against him. That first kid was a little bit chunky, and they put him on rails. And sometimes you can only do what you are expected to do against the competition. And if you're expected to dominate it, he did dominate it.
By the way, he is from Coatesville, Pennsylvania. I'm not sure I or we mentioned that. He's from Coatesville, Pennsylvania, and they have a pretty good program.
They do. They have one alumni that everyone knows that it's basketball. This is how my nerdy brain works. He was actually got recognition for wearing a mask in NBA games. Bill, who is it? Rip Hamilton. All right, we move on.
I did watch the Cavs win by 30 last night. At Toronto.
Always comes back to the Cleveland people, which is why we're doing actually a special premium podcast after this on Deshaun Watson, kind of breaking that down. We're going to go over like what the future for the Browns and how that's all going to work out.
Let's do Lane Thomas instead.
All right, Bill. Then NFL is king, Bill. So Dietrich Sanchez.
Story to show my age. My favorite NBA basketball team when I was a kid was, guess?
The Cincinnati Royals.
The Cincinnati Royals and the Big O, Oscar Robertson.
Mark, you didn't get that?
I don't even know if I was alive when that happened.
I don't think you were. I was heartbroken when they took that franchise. And where did they move him to?
Sacramento?
No, that was the next move.
Kansas City?
They were the Kansas City Omaha Kings. I was heartbroken when I was a kid, and they moved the Cincinnati Royals to Kansas City to be the Kings. And then, as you pointed out, Dan, they then moved to Sacramento.
Man, I have a great Sacramento Kings story. Steve McAllister told me this is going to be a major digression, and I don't care. So Steve McAllister, these guys will tell you when we first got going in the business all together 15, 20 years ago, Steve was one of the guys who helped run Bucknuts. Huge Cincinnati fan, huge Cincinnati Royals fan. And he followed them when they became the Kings. So there's this guy, I don't know if you guys have seen him, who used to make a living out of going and like sliding into famous sports events without being just discovered. In fact, there's one Super Bowl of the Cowboys where he's actually one of the guys carrying Tom Landry out. I'm going to look up this guy's name when these other guys start talking to get the name right, and it's a basketball player. But this guy did that at an all-star game, and I don't know if it was in Kansas City, but he put on a Kansas City Kings uniform and got into the layup lines during the all-star game. And as he's doing it, no one thought it was a big deal, and none of the other players recognized. And then he realizes there's a guy from the Kansas City Kings on the all-star team, and he's wearing the uniform. He's all nervous, and the guy from the Kansas City Kings comes up to him and goes, "Man, you're on my team, and I don't even know your name. What's going on?" And he's like, and then he eventually got caught. I'm going to look up the guy's name, but that's one of my favorites.
I did see that special on that guy and all the things he would make up press passes. He would do all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
I'm sorry. That was a serious digression, but that is one of the funny. That lets you know the 70s and the NBA was about to go through a major cocaine issue because people were mangled all the time.
I too, like Steve McAllister, I too tried to follow the Kansas City Omaha Kings for a while. But back in those days, no internet and everything was much different, much harder to follow your team back in those days if it's in Kansas City, Omaha, than it is in Cincinnati. So that didn't last, and they eventually started the Cavaliers. So I became a fan of theirs.
Otis Birdsong.
I remember Otis.
It was Otis Birdsong. If you want to Google a great game, go Google Otis Birdsong, Larry Bird in college, and you will see that the greatest narrative myth of all time is that Larry Bird wouldn't be a pro player right now. Go look what Larry Bird was in college. It will blow you away. All right. That was we're going to get some serious complaints on that one. That's our last show of the week, so I just won't answer them and pretend on Monday that everything went okay. Here we go, Chris. There you are, buddy. Just wasted 20 minutes of the show. You spelled wasted wrong, and it was 5 minutes. So work on that a little bit. Let's go here. William, let's get back on track here. Clever and witty. Do we add another offensive lineman in the 25 class?
Well, right now, if they do, it'll be Demola, as we've talked about. Demola added Deshaun. And I think there is a reasonable chance. I really think that there's a decent chance he does not sign with Georgia Tech. And if Jahan signs with somebody else, I think it will probably be either Ohio State or Georgia. That's my feelings right now. We'll see how his official visit goes this weekend. But Jahan he's really good. If you watch his video, and I know Mark has showed it on here, he's good. Very good offensive tackle.
All right, we're going to.
And by the way, this isn't a situation where he ended up committing to Georgia Tech because Georgia did not want him. Georgia, when he committed to Georgia Tech, wanted Jahan. He just picked Georgia Tech at that time. And Georgia still would like to have him in their class.
Georgia's recruiting is interesting. Maybe this offseason we'll do a deep dive on that. I'm not sure they've done as well as they should have over the last year or so, but another digression. All right. I'm going to ask one question, then we'll read another ad for Chris here. Is Mason Wilhelm an OSU level recruit? Who would like to take that?
I've seen St. Edward this year, and I've seen Mason at the Ohio State camp, and I've talked to his father, and his father shared with me that one of the facts about Mason is he has one of those young birthdays for his age. So he's one of those kids that doesn't turn birthday till the end of the year. And when you look at Mason in the face, he kind of has one of those 8th grade faces on a big man's body. Oh, yeah. I think he could grow into the Ohio State.
Those are good.
Yeah, like when I saw him play this year, he looks pretty good. I mean, playing early as a sophomore last year at St. Ed's, I know he got thrown in the fire a little bit, and there were some big boys on that offensive line last year, so there wasn't a lot of playing time to go around. But he did have some highlights and a film to put out last year. This year, the spot's his, and, his body of work will probably speak for itself at the end of the year. I haven't watched his tape, but in person, he's big enough. And I think he's going to get a little bigger, and he kind of reminds me of his dad. He's really athletic playing offensive line, and I think that's going to bode him well when he tries to get some of these bigger offers. But yeah, I think you would put him on that list of like the Bod Penn Millers and Jake Cooks and stuff like that, where he's an offer candidate, but they're going to camp him and they're going to make sure. And he's going to need all the development he can get. He's going to need the weight room before he gets to an Ohio State camp this summer, probably. But I really liked what I saw at the camp and live this year.
I left Neil's thank you up there because, Neil, if that's you should be training him, dude. Good gracious.
With Mason Wilhelm, I just worry about the national board, but being obviously a legacy kind of puts you on level footing with the national board where you're going to get, a fair shot to go in that group. So I'm sure there'll be some highly ranked 24/7 guys, on the board, but for an Ohio guy, I think Mason's someone they'll be looking at.
Love legacies. Matt Wilhelm was a very good player here. All right. Excited to let you guys know about our second sponsor of the day. Second sponsor of the day, a new one, Cornbread Hemp. Got a great deal for you guys. If you're looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, you have to give Cornbread Hemp a try. They've created the first ever USDA organic THC gummy that's 100% legal for anyone 21 and above. Cornbread's gummies have 10 milligrams of THC per gummy for just the right dose. Perfect for taking the edge off without making you feel anxious or paranoid like other cannabis edibles. Furthermore, Cornbread does not use any synthetic ingredients at all. So if you're looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, you have to give Cornbread Hemp a try. They've created the first ever USDA organic THC gummy that's 100% legal. As a special offer for our Bucknuts Morning 5 listeners, you get 30% off your first order. Just visit cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts and use promo code Bucknuts at checkout. Again, that's cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts. Use code Bucknuts for 30% off your first order. Cheers to a healthier, happy hour. All right, let's get back to our questions here. See, some people liked it. It's touch and go with the digressions. We get Philly B here who loves the digressions, has installed it as a inside joke with his friends. By the way, I digress. It's not a Bucknuts Morning 5 property. There are plenty of podcasts that use that. Dave and I just do it now kind of as a little bit of a joke. All right. Mika Hanna, always keeping us on par here. Thoughts on cornerback wide receiver Killian O'Brien out of Ashland? Does he have a quarterback that can get him the ball? Probably does. Go ahead, Mark.
I saw him, and he did not necessarily stand out in the half that I was there. Of course, I said he started off 0 for 8, and there wasn't much passing going on in that first half. Looking at his huddle, 5'10", 150, so I'd have to check him out later in the year and see how he's grown for the class of 2027. But I'm sure I'll see him at some of the workouts with this quarterback in the offseason, but nothing that I would jump on right away.
All right. Bill, Favour Akih. Glad Ohio State is having him for a visit. He is the real deal. Can either one of you bring us up on Favour Akih?
Yeah, he is about a 6'1", 190-pound running back to class of 2026 from Delaware Hayes, which is not far up the road from where I live. He is having a great junior season. I believe he's at about 1,600 yards this season. He's got a couple pretty good early scholarship offers. Iowa State. He not too long ago visited Iowa State, and they have offered him a scholarship. Again, that's Iowa State. And Toledo has offered him a scholarship. But he really is going into the season, was a little bit unknown because he spent his freshman year at Westerville Central High School, which is just down the road from me to the east. Delaware Hayes is up the road from me to the north, but he spent his freshman year at Westerville Central. Transferred then to Delaware Hayes as a sophomore, but he played behind a couple of upper-class running backs that year, so he was behind them. And then this season, his junior season, he's gotten his chance, and he's really taken advantage of it. Like I said, he's got about 1,600 yards, I believe, a little over 1,600 yards rushing, and he's excited about making a recruiting visit to Ohio State this weekend.
Well,
ask and ye shall receive. This is video on. Can you pronounce the name for me one more time, Bill?
It is Favour, just like do me a favor. Favour Akih is how he pronounces his name.
I can handle that. Favour Akih. Take it away, Mark.
Yeah, he might be the favorite of a lot of people. As you can see, he's got power and speed. As Bill was talking there, that makes sense because we did the showcases this year. I did not remember him at the Delaware showcase, and probably because he wasn't at their school yet. But yeah, you can see some burst, you can see some power, and at close to 200 pounds, that puts him in the realm of what Ohio State looks for in their backs. They like to have a powerful back around 200 pounds. Yeah, you see the sides and you see blinding speed through the middle of that defense right there. I mean, that really was a burst through the hole. I like a lot of what I see. I can see why Iowa State and these other schools were on him early, and with so little time, like you're saying, this is his first time getting his chance, and he's making the most of it. I expect this offer list to grow tremendously. I mean, it just ran by a whole handful of guys in like
a little bit of a long strider too.
I was just going to say that looks like a real nice track stride. When you get out in the open field, he's covering some grounds. I know coaches that are still old school that'll count how many steps it takes a player to go 10 yards, and that'll give them the 40 time or the estimated time. So when they're watching guys running the open field, I think they like guys that only take 3 steps or under 3 steps for 10 yards that really can cover a lot of ground. And there's some formula there they use, and I've never actually wanted to put much stock into that. But, yeah, in the open field, he looks like he is long striding his way to success.
Favour Akih. John wants to know, where is he from?
Delaware Hayes. He is a Delaware Hayes Pacer.
Does he play basketball, Bill? You know?
No, he does not play basketball.
Because they were really good in basketball this past year, deep.
Yeah. In fact, I talked to him a little bit about basketball because a number of years ago, probably 10 years ago or so, I coached on the AAU circuit a really, really good basketball player at Delaware Hayes. Matt Bengaya went to Delaware Hayes.
Oh, yeah.
And ended up playing professionally in Europe. And I coached him, and I asked Favour if he knew Matt, and he said no. But, again, part of the reason he wasn't even in the Delaware Hayes School District at that time. Again, he transferred after his freshman year at Westerville Central to Delaware Hayes.
He looks really good.
Yeah, he does a great job.
He runs he's got a little violence in his running too, if you notice that.
Yeah.
He definitely broke out into long. One concern I have about long striders is in traffic, they sometimes have trouble chopping their feet and stuff. He did not. Wait, he's a sophomore?
He's a junior, 2026 junior.
That is a good football player right there. All right, I got a question that I'm going to – Hollywood Hager, I got your question here, and I will answer that at the end of the show. That is the least Buckeye-related question of all time, but it touches me in my heartstrings, so I'll get to it. His burst is crazy. That was a good call. Jason Jackson, the kid from Ironton, help me out.
He's the receiver down there that was committed
Sean
to Notre
Alston?
Dame. Yeah.
No,
not
is
Sean
it?
Alston.
That's Paynesville.
Yeah. He was committed to Notre Dame. Sean Terry. You were
Good
close.
call.
Yeah, Sean Terry.
Is he on the list, Bill?
He's not. He has not been offered by Ohio State. I don't think. I'm not sure that he's been to an Ohio State game this season, at least that I can recall.
All right, we're going to stick with running
He's
backs.
a shorter, burstier, quicker receiver. I mean, he's got some juice to him and some speed. I just don't know. Like, again, this national board, there's going to be someone like him at 6'2" or 6'3", and it's it's just a size thing, I think. But he's really got some good stuff to him down there, and he takes over games. I mean, he's put up some numbers this year in a few games. I think I saw some highlights 3 or 4 weeks ago.
All right.
If I remember correctly.
Speaking of running backs, Bill, class, location, and situation on the recruiting front with Savion Hyder.
Well, he absolutely is interested in Ohio State. In fact, he has told me Ohio State is one of the schools that he is seriously considering. He is, arguably as good as any running back in the country for his class 2026. And he is going to get to Ohio State. I believe he will be at the Michigan game. I'd have to look for sure, but I think he's going to be here for the Michigan game, if I remember correctly. And very interested in Ohio State, for sure.
We don't want to get on Chris's bad side any further here, Bill. When will Ohio State start getting more 26 class commitments? Do you see a commitment watch this weekend of anyone in town?
I don't know that I would say that I would predict anybody in the class of 2026 coming in Ohio State this weekend that's going to be at the game. But those commitments will come. I think right now, this season is of the utmost importance. This is a season Ohio State, in I think most people's opinion, has a very realistic shot to win the national championship. And as they go through things, I think it's going to, providing they do what I think they're going to do. I think they're going to be in the playoffs. I think they're going to do very well at the playoffs. And I think they're going to have a great chance to win the national championship. And that'll help with recruiting, no doubt. But they're really focused right now on the season and doing that right. I think they're in great shape with a lot of players out there. You look in the state of Ohio, it's a good year for players in Ohio. The class of 2025 is good. 2026 is good. And I think a lot of those, I think they're in very good shape with a lot of those top 2026 guys, starting at the top with guys like Maxwell Riley, the offensive lineman, and Elbert Hill, the cornerback, and so on and so forth. The commitments will come.
I'm going to read you right now the top 10 teams in football recruiting rankings according to 24/7 Sports in 2025. We'll go 10 to 1. 10 USC, 9 Oregon, 8 Texas A&M, 7 Tennessee, 6 Texas, 5 Auburn, 4 LSU, 3 Georgia, 2 Alabama, 1 the good guys. So let's keep that going. All right. Do we have?
I think we're still in this early stages of NIL where early commitments might not be as easy to come by as they were in the past. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because you're waiting for that final answer on your package. Maybe the NIL, like, hey, we have an NIL package. Here's what it is, or here's what it might be. And there might not be a final answer because as a college coach, it's probably tough to shoot your shot and say, here's the number we're going to give you and be the first one to drop a number on a kid. And then all you're doing is setting a number for other schools to go over, and the bidding now begins. So this, getting early commitments, I think it's more of a tangled web in negotiations and offers. And it used to be, hey, here's your scholarship. Everyone else offer your scholarship, all things being equal. Now you can commit. Now it's not all things being equal. It's okay. I have an offer for this at this school. I didn't know it, but this school just came in and went over the top of that school. And boy, this cool school just threw in a car, and this school just told my mom they'd fly her in for every game. And so I think it's a never ending one-upping of things. And, so yeah, the early commitments for 26, I may be a little leery to see, them start flying in because of the new, world we live in.
Also, if you look at the 2026 class rankings and all, Oregon's on top right now. They have 7 commitments, and that's a great start for them. But you look at some of the other schools. Georgia, they have 2 commitments right now for 2026. I think they're going to finish with a pretty strong class. I think that's a pretty safe bet. Oklahoma has 3 commitments. Texas, they have 3 commitments. Texas can recruit. So it's not like Ohio State is out there on an island with their 1 commitment. And by the way, that 1 commitment is as good as it gets in Chris Henry Jr.
Keep this in mind. When Deidre Sanchez says the bidding is crazy, we may want her to save those texts that she's getting. And once everything's over with, she can send them to me and I'll black out the names and we can all look at how ridiculous they were. Because if you were going to write an offer for somebody, this is me talking, her son would be one of those guys that you'd make sure your pen had indelible ink. Because if you're making a last-minute run at the best players, there's going to be people who are like, just give him one more call and offer him blank and see what they do. Test their resolve. So we are counting on your resolve, Team Sanchez. Counting on it. Believe me. I'm sure we're not alone. When I saw, I don't know if you guys remember last year when Ryan Day found out at the podium at one point that Jeremiah was in and Edric was in. That kind of grunt, he felt it too.
A very big sigh of relief.
Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
Very big sigh of relief.
It is a stressful job now dealing with the NIL. But you just saw Virginia's basketball coach basically just say, you can shove it. I'm out of here. I'm 55. I got money in the bank, and I'm not kissing any more butt at this level. So hard to argue. All right.
By the way, here's another 2027 guy that is going to be at Ohio State this weekend. It's an important one. Max Brown, a really good player, linebacker that Ohio State has offered a scholarship. That's kind of a breaking thing, so to speak, that he will be at Ohio Stadium this weekend. Real important kid. Ohio State likes him a lot, and he likes Ohio State.
True story. College football might as well be semi-pro football. Yes, except for the fact that you take out the word semi because they don't pay them well enough in semi-pro football. It's pro football, just a lower level. Just what it is. Let's just call it straight. I had this discussion with a journalist the other day. There was a time when you were covering football. If you covered a high school game and there's a touchdown pass thrown, you don't mention the corner. Okay? When it's a college game, you can at least mention him. When it's a pro game, you can say we should trade him. That's how we talked about it. Okay? So the high school, college kind of don't, but that was because the pros got paid. Now I think as obvious as you're going to have college kids taking a ton of guff, as it were. All right. I'm going to read an ad to end the show, and I'm going to answer a basketball question here because it's the end of the show. If you don't want to hear a basketball answer, boogie. Hollywood Hager asked, Dan, what happened with Charles Smith from the Hoyas? I know it's not Buckeye related. I'm answering this because Charles Smith is my single favorite basketball player ever. He played for Georgetown. I graduated high school and he was that same year. Played with Alonzo Mourning when he was a freshman. Ironically, he was a very little used player, and Ohio State played Georgetown in the tournament. They put in Charles Smith as a backup to kind of give him a burst for Georgetown. He didn't miss, and he never missed again. He was a sub who wasn't good. They put him in a tournament game. He played great and just somehow never stopped playing great. Got MVP of the Big East his senior year over Sherman Douglas. And you ask what happened to him. First of all, he's blamed for the loss in the Olympics because John Thompson took him as his point guard and we didn't win. So that was a tough start. Then he went to the pros. Unfortunately, with the Celtics, he was in a terrible drunk driving accident. I do believe the other person passed, and that kind of ended his career. Ironically, his younger brother, Kurt Smith, is arguably one of the biggest legends in the history of DC playground basketball. I think he went to Temple or Drake for a year and got a cup of coffee. But Kurt Smith is literally a living legend on the DC playgrounds. And you can go Google that. And you can see Durant playing on there and Gilbert Arenas pulling his Jaguar into the worst neighborhood in the city, right up to the court, getting out and playing. All right. That's what everyone wanted. Georgetown talk at the end. These guys are back on the road this weekend, both going to Olentangy, Berlin versus who else?
Olentangy.
Okay. Bill, really touching the mileage meter there. How far will you be traveling to that game by miles?
Oh, gosh, probably 5 miles, yeah. And Olentangy has Caden Gebhart, safety, who he's got some really good offers, and Ohio State is definitely interested in him. Interest is definitely mutual. And CJ Santa, he's a linebacker from Olentangy. They are both 2026 kids, and they're both talented players.
Where are you headed for the second half, Mark?
Well, all of the Westervilles are playing at home, and I really want to see Westerville North, so I might go see them. I know they had some of the most talented players I saw in the high school showcases. I'd like to see how they look on the field. But there is a plethora of games within a 10-mile driving distance. The Olentangy Orange is also playing the other Olentangy. I think all the Olentangies, all four of them are playing each other. So I'm still kind of wheelhousing the second game there, but I did want to see a great game, and Bill and I did. That is going to be the game of the week down there too. You know, highly talented teams with great records. So
big rivalry too. Berlin is the new high school.
I try to stay away from the rivalry games because they're so crowded, but I am so tired of being skunked by bad games and blowouts that I am willing to deal with the crowd.
Memo
by
to
the-
ADs. Mark needs especially good parking if you want coverage. Go ahead, Bill.
The Olin Tangi schools are having a pretty nice year. Olin Tangi goes into this game. I mentioned 8-1. Berlin is 7-2. I'm virtually certain. Olin Tangi Orange, I believe, is 8-1 this year. I'm pretty certain. Liberty, I don't know what the record is. Usually pretty good, but good year for the Olin Tangi schools when it comes to high school football. Really good year.
We will be back with these guys on Tuesday for all you can get. Big weekend coming, playoffs. I believe Bell Fountain. I think this is the last game of the regular season in Ohio. Is that right?
Yes, and Bell Fountain has Kenston at home. At Kenston. And,
Kenton Ridge.
That'll be a pretty good game. I think both teams enter that game at 7-2. And then next weekend is not this weekend, but the next weekend is the first weekend of high school playoffs in Ohio.
Bill, it's actually Kenton Ridge that they
Kenton
play
Ridge.
in
I said
Springfield.
Kenton
And the
Ridge,
reason I know that team, and I'll let you guys go on this with another slight digression. That's who beat us in the basketball playoffs last year, knocked my younger son out of the playoffs. Though he did have 33 points in the game, but I digress. All right.
Kenton Ridge, by the way, is in the Springfield area.
It is.
That Bell Fountain will be traveling to this weekend. And again, both teams are 7-2, I'm pretty sure.
Kenton Ridge is also one of those schools. I don't know if it's this class or the last two classes, but they're good in football. They're good in basketball. They're good in baseball. I know their best, one of their best basketball players was a Division I baseball player. So Kenton Ridge is peaking. But Bell Fountain has rebounded from a questionable loss to Bellbrook earlier in the year, and Chris Madigan will be there. Chris, make sure you check in on how you feel about Tavian. Appreciate you guys stopping by. If you're still here, you need to know about Mando. You went the distance, you need to smell good. It's a great product, and I highly recommend it to you guys. If you're like I was and you've been using the same deodorant for a long time, it might be time to try something different and better. Mando was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed, mistreated. Mando is American-made. It controls odor for up to 72 hours. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code Bucknuts at shopmando.com. shopmando.com. All righty. Have a good one, Bucknutters.